All right, welcome back. It's been hard to ignore, that's for sure, the Trump tussle with the Pope, Leo the 14th. Now, Trump took a general swipe at the Pope, kind of, while saying it was unacceptable for Iran to have nuclear weapons. And the Pontiff, well, he's called for a ceasefire and urged dialogue to resolve the Mideast conflict. Now, we've had dialogue for 47 years, and I would say this. Look where it's gotten us. How about nowhere? Trump added, will someone please tell Pope Leo that Iran has killed at least 42,000 innocent, completely unarmed protesters in the last 2 months, and that for Iran to have a nuclear bomb is absolutely unacceptable. Now, Pope Leo XIV has attracted criticism from the president and his allies for refusing to back the war in Iran. Now, on Thursday, the Pope reiterated his calls for peace. Now, the Pope also added, woe to those who manipulate religion and the very name of God for their own military, economic, and political gain, dragging that which is sacred into darkness and filth. Blessed are the peacemakers, he said. Well, my next guest is going to have a great take on this, I'm sure. Please welcome into the show Dr. Carol Swain. All right, Dr. Swain, I wanted to hear what you had to say about this because you're a level-headed person and knows a lot about both academia and religion and maybe what's going on with our politics here in the country. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, both of them are in different roles. And like the Pope as head of the church, and, he's also head of the Vatican, he has to say well, at least he feels that he has to say some of the things that he says. And of course, as Christians, we all say, blessed are the peacemakers. But when you look at Iran and how that they don't play by the same rules as everyone else, and how with Islam, at times, there seems to be a different set of rules when it comes to honesty and fair play. And so I think the Pope doesn't understand the realities on the ground. And to the extent that he talks about a ceasefire, we tried that. It was not honored, by both sides. And I think that if the president, and he has well documented information about Iran and its nuclear power, if he makes a statement, I would like to see other countries around the world line up behind him. That's more difficult when the Pope, who is the head of the Catholic Church, takes a stance that, that somehow this is immoral to engage in war.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, the nuclear warheads don't allow you to say, well, we'll wait until they strike first and then we'll punch back because you might not get the chance. And that's the problem. And by the way, to see how Iran reacted to us going in there by just indiscriminately lobbing, drones and missiles into surrounding countries, to me, that just proves that they would have been just as irresponsible with a nuclear weapon had they had one, and they would have fired something like that off because they're indiscriminately bombing their neighbors. What would you think they would have done if they had something better to bomb with, a nuclear weapon? So I feel that he's in the right on that one, and they would have done something crazy, and they are that crazy. We've seen what they've done to us since, I don't know, I was around for 1979. A guy from our farm town was kidnapped in Iran for the 444 days. So I remember very well what they've been like from that period going forward and all the lives that have been lost because of them. So I think that something has to be done. And it's one of those situations where, yeah, your mother and the Pope would say the same thing. Don't start a fight. Don't cause any problems. And if somebody pushes you or punches you, then you can punch back. But you can't have that rule of nuclear war.
No, you cannot. And so, like, nations can't just turn the other cheek. And we do know that the hatred in the Middle East, the hatred for Israel is such that if Iran had a nuclear weapon and they could just point it at Israel, they would certainly wipe out that little postage stamp size nation, and we would all feel the effects across the world. And Iran having a nuclear weapon worries me. There's some other nations that I would be concerned about. And when the Pope says we need to pray, I'm in for prayer. I'm all for that. We do need to pray, that there would be a godly decision, a divine decision and wisdom about what to do. Because when I look at the political forces that are arraying themselves and what's happening in the United States, sometimes I don't see the political solution I think in America, the Constitution itself, it's great. In some ways, it constrains us. In some ways, it allows our enemies to take advantage of us. And when it comes to this conflict and war, I don't see a good solution when other nations are being politically correct. They're like the Pope. There shouldn't be any violence, and they turn a blind eye, to the slaughter of Christians in Nigeria and all these in other parts of the world. This is not right. This cannot stand. And I wish the people that are so concerned about the ceasefire and what's happening in Iran would show equal concern about other things that are taking place around the world that are absolutely wrong, should not be tolerated by people in decent societies.
Boy, I mean, you've said a lot there, and I really agree with you. And I would add to something you said about, sometimes we get constrained by the rules that we have, right? And that's true. And there's a great line that I'll never forget, and it was told to me while I lived in London. But it's rules are there for the guidance of wise men and the obedience of fools. Sometimes you kind of have to step out and not be so obedient to the rules. You have to make a judgment call, which is very difficult to do, which I think the president's done here, and kind of go outside of the rules here for the betterment of society. What do you think?
Well, I mean, that's why he's the president. And I believe that all world leaders will be held accountable for what they do. But anyone that's read the Bible, read the Old Testament, read God's interactions with men, they shouldn't be surprised that there are strategies that they don't understand. Well, there will always be strategies, and there will also be, I would say, communications that they will never know. And there's so much that we don't know, sitting in our armchairs, sitting at home. We can say anything and everything, but we don't know what the leaders know.
Yep, exactly right. Love having you on. Thank you very much for coming on the show,
You.
Dr. Swain. You're a fantastic guest. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, time now to dial